Hello there, I'm Alvalin Lundgren, and what we are going to cover in this training is how to create a profile that describes your ideal client so that as a freelance creative, you can seek out and attract the types of businesses and organizations that you are most suited to work with. So, welcome to the training, and let's get started. It's a common practice for freelance creatives to accept every project they encounter. And especially early on in a career, the necessity of acquiring clients, completing projects, making money, all these things play into proving your ability as a professional. And they're all really important. But at some point, you have to determine what it is you do and who you do it for so that you can work with the types of clients and work on the types of projects that you're best suited for. There is this concept of alignment. Having experienced quite a bit in my early years as a freelance creative, working with clients with whom I was not aligned created a lot of trouble, created a lot of problems. And I even experienced projects that started out really well, but a few weeks in, all these red flags started showing up. The outcome was not as satisfying, shall we say, as it should have been and could have been. And it took me a number of years to actually understand that I needed to identify the kinds of projects and the kinds of clients that I was best suited to serve. A client profile or persona is critical for your business. It's critical for your success. It's also critical for your branding. How do you build your reputation if you are working with anyone who comes along? It's critical to know who you serve. It is necessary. And by knowing who you serve, it's also conversely knowing who you don't serve. It's a way of filtering the wrong types of clients, the ones that you are not good to work with. A client profile also helps you target your message. When you're branding, when you're building your brand and reputation, how you communicate about what you do and who you serve will attract or repel clients. And you want to repel the wrong clients, but attract the right clients. And this is in everything you do, your website, your social media, how you talk about yourself, how you describe projects, how do you describe your approach to the creative work. All of these things go into your messaging. All of these things are what you communicate to the industries that you serve, to the clients that you serve, and to prospective clients. By developing a client profile, you demonstrate an understanding of who your target audience is and who it's not, and what your target audience needs, its pain points, its problems, and how you solve those problems as a creative. And it's also internally a reminder of who you should be attracting, who you want to work with, and why. It also helps you to retain the clients that you want to retain because in working with clients, you get to know them and you come to realize how the working relationship is going to make or break the project. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, you can get into the middle of a project and realize that this is not the right client you should be working with. So how do you avoid that scenario? Because when you're in that situation, you have to finish the project, or you should finish the project. So what are client profiles? There's a lot said about profiling and is it the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? For a freelance creative, it's definitely the right thing to do because you want to be able to identify the best types of clients for you to work with, and that's not going to be the entire world. Creating an ideal client profile based on what you want to do, how you do it, your service offerings, the problems you solve will narrow your audience so that you're not speaking to the whole world, but you're trying to attract those specific clients and those specific projects that are really a good fit for you. So a client profile is also called a buyer persona. It's called an avatar. It's based on research, so it's not just an idea, it's not just something you come up with. Your audience, your target audience has to actually exist. So it can't be just some vague idea of who you want to serve, and it can't be really broad either. The profile will specifically identify types of clients and types of projects for you, and that removes a lot of the guesswork in your marketing. And as I previously mentioned, you use the client profile to identify those who will come calling, but that just are not the right fit because you don't want to waste your time. So, client profiles deal with two sets of data generally: demographics and psychographics. Demographics are fact, it's easily acquired information, and you can acquire it via conversations, research, internet research, AI research, and so forth. Psychographics are a little more, they're not really vague, they're a little more nebulous. It's more, shall we say, feeling, opinion, philosophy based. And a pro tip is to think of your client persona or profile as an actual person and not a company or a group of people or businesses, not an entire industry. Are you business to business or are you business to consumer? Most of the time, a freelancer offering creative services and creative solutions are going to be working with businesses and organizations, enterprises. And that can be an individual, or it can be a small, medium, or large company. It can be a corporation. But you're basically serving other businesses or organizations who have clients and customers of their own. The other option would be business to consumer, also known as B2C. If you are an interior designer and you work in the residential market, you are going to be much more B2C because the client is going to be the final end user of your services. You're going to design the space, the client's going to use that space. It's in their home, it's in their business, whatever. Business to business, who you're actually designing for is not your direct client, but their clients and customers. So that's an important distinction to understand. If you're a freelance creative who serves clients and also creates and sells product like art prints or merchandise of some sort, then you are both business to business and business to consumer, but two very separate audiences. And you should deal with your client profile and your customer persona, your buyer persona, as separate things. They are basically two separate people, two separate audiences. So let's talk about demographics. First of all, a business or an individual, very often, and I've had quite a number of clients over the years who are individual, independent contractors, self-employed people with no staff, no employees, just like myself. In that sense, that's an individual, but I'm still working since they're in business and I'm helping to solve their business problems and meet their business objectives. That person is still a business to business type of client. Then there's age range and gender, and this is important to understand as well, whether it's a company or an individual, whether it's an organization or a company. And then what is the age range and the gender? Do you work best with client and client representatives who are close to your age and the opposite gender or the same gender as you? What is their education level? What do they have a degree? Do they have a certificate? Are they skilled trades? Where do they live? What's their location? Where do they work? What is their job title? And in many cases, this will pertain to the person at the company or organization that you are directly involved with in developing the project. If you want to design, say, book covers or illustrate book covers for a publishing company, you need to know the publishing company, what their specialty is, and whether you're working with the editor, the art director, or the art buyer. What about the industry? Many freelancers specialize and focus in on particular industries. I know a number who only work with nonprofits. I know another one who only works with churches. What is the industry that you prefer to focus in on? How big is the company or the organization? And consider revenue, consider number of employees, number of personnel. Do they have more than one location? Is it a franchise chain that you're developing work for? Or is it a sole proprietor with a single storefront in a small town? What do they specialize in? So, what is their industry and what is their position within the industry? Another thing to understand about your ideal client is how do they measure success? Are they looking for increased sales? Are they looking for more awareness? If it's a nonprofit organization, they're probably looking for awareness and a larger donor base. If it's a for profit business, they're probably looking for increased sales or increased clicks or building their marketing list. So these are all things that should factor into your client persona. So these are all things that should factor into your client persona. So another thing to consider in the psychographics side of things is how does your ideal client communicate? Do they prefer email, text, voicemail, direct mail? Where do they connect online? Where are they found on social media? Are they on Facebook or are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitch or are they on Instagram? Also know what media they consume. Do they stream or do they watch broadcast TV? Where do they get their news? Do they get their news on X or do they get it from HuffPost? Do they prefer reading or listening to books? What podcasts do they listen to? What causes are they interested in? What do they support in terms of their worldview and their approach to living? And then what do they want to achieve? What are their goals and business objectives? What are their challenges? You can look at challenges within the industry and you can look at challenges within their organization or just trying to meet their business objectives. Then consider how are you able to help them overcome those challenges through your creative services. And as you get to know them, what are the pain points that they're dealing with that's going to cause them to start looking for somebody like you to help them? So if you can define all of these things, if you can put these things down on paper, it's going to be a big help in identifying who you are best suited to serve. Another thing, and this is one is really important for me, and it's probably going to be quite important for you, you have to be aligned on values, the things that are important. It's very difficult to work with somebody who has a totally opposite worldview. What keeps them up at night? Already went over this a little bit, but what problems are they trying to solve in their organization or within their industry? What are the things that they would consider in evaluating your services as opposed to your competitors? What are they looking for? And how are they assessing your ability to help them versus somebody else's ability to help them? What about objections? Price is often an objection. Time is often an objection. Sometimes being a freelancer raises eyebrows. You're an individual independent contractor as opposed to an agency with multiple staff. How will you respond to those objections? The reasons you want to understand their objections is so that you have a means to counter those objections or address them up front and just basically take them off the table. Like in the case of pricing, very often I just advise people to go with the cheaper option because I am going to cost more because that's what it costs to work with me and that's what my clients pay me. And so go work with the cheaper option. If it doesn't work out, by all means, come back and we'll talk. That's one way you can address the you cost too much objection. So do some digging on what common objections might be and how would you respond and how would you head them off? What other competitors would they consider? And this is part of your branding process. You have to know who your competitors are in order to be able to differentiate from your competitors. So your competitors are going to do some things better than you or differently than you, and you're going to do things differently than most of your competitors. That's something to position on, differentiate on, and take advantage of. What would be the outcome for them if they chose the wrong creative? And that's kind of interesting because that cuts both ways. They might be the wrong client for you based on your client persona, but they might also end up working with the wrong designer or illustrator or photographer. And another question, what if they don't do anything at all? What if they just why not just keep going as they are? What would be the outcome for them in that situation? A biblical concept for you, knowledge is power. We hear that a lot in various sectors. Having information at hand gives you the upper hand. Having correct, factual, true information gives you the upper hand. The scripture says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." The more you address the client persona and the more you can flesh it out, the better off you're going to be. Because clients are key to your business, and the wrong client can really undermine your ability to do business well. And you have to be able to basically head things off at the pass, so to speak. In other words, you have to be able to discern and identify the right type of client as well as the wrong client. Because if you start out working with the wrong client and things all of a sudden pop up that are true problems, it can be devastating to your business. It can cause you all kinds of grief, all kinds of stress. It can actually add to your worry, and it can blow the relationship, and it can also blow your reputation. The client persona, understanding who and being able to filter out who not, is very crucial to your business. When you know who your client persona is, you're not going to waste time or effort marketing to the wrong people. So that means you're going to be more efficient with your time and more efficient with your budget, and therefore more effective in both. You're going to be able to specifically target your marketing messages effectively. If you're able to market effectively, you can attract and acquire clients more quickly, which enables you to build momentum more quickly. In terms of the psychographics, when you understand your client's pain points and you speak directly to those pain points in your marketing and messaging rather than your services, you can position as a problem solver creating effective solutions. So to create your ideal client persona, who do you want to work with? What does your ideal project look like? So here, if you have been freelancing and you've worked with a variety of clients, it's a really good idea to sit down and kind of think about maybe your top 2 or 3 clients in terms of, were they easy to work with? How much creative freedom did you have? And other criteria that basically describes what an ideal project would be. Which clients have you worked with that most closely match that criteria? Which were the best to work with? And then consider your 2 or 3 least favorite clients to work with and why. This will help you figure out the demographics as well as the psychographics. So describe your ideal client in terms of demographics, which are the facts and the data, and describe your ideal client in terms of psychographics, their values, goals, problems, and so forth. What industries and sectors do you prefer to serve? And that is, where do you align with industries? Do some research and identify 2 to 3 actual prospects, whether they're business organizations or independents like yourself, within your preferred industry. Research and identify 2 to 3, and you're going to start with those 2 to 3. You're going to compare them. What do they have in common? How are they different? Do you know what their pain points are, both externally within the industry and internally within their businesses? And how can you help fix their problems? To reach out, send a targeted message. When you research, find out who the person is that you would speak to. Who do you want to connect with? Who should you connect with? Who is actually searching for the independent contractor to work with? That can be an art buyer if it's a publisher or ad agency. It can be the president of the company. It can be the marketing director of the company or the organization. It could be the executive director of a nonprofit. So find out who that point person is that will be the key person you will work with should you be offered a project. Send an email. This is called cold email or cold outreach. They don't know anything about you. Send a short email message that positions yourself as a problem solver. An email like this should be under 200 words. It should be simple, direct, don't flatter. Introduce yourself. What do you do and how you can help. Include how you have helped similar organizations or businesses in the past, if you have been able to do that. And end with an ask. Shall we talk? What do you think about a 15-minute phone call? Are you interested in exploring this further? If you don't hear anything, send a follow-up in about a week and another follow-up. And if you don't hear anything, then find another target. Post your content and your messaging on platforms where those prospects exist. Here's an example of an illustrator reaching out to a magazine. It's personalized. Hello, I'm an illustrator specializing in expressive portraits, and I've been a long-time admirer of how your magazine uses cover illustration to capture readers' interests. And I'm reaching out to express my interest in illustrating a future cover, and my work focuses on capturing personality in a clean graphic style which attracts attention and stands out on store racks. I'd like to create a bespoke cover portrait for an upcoming issue. You can view a selection of my work here and include the URL of your website, not Behance and not on somebody else's platform. Make sure it's your own portfolio under your own domain. And then just the ask is, please keep me in mind for future illustration projects. And then warm regard, and then sign off with your email signature. In addition to sending emails and following your prospects on social platforms, be sure to make yourself follow-worthy with interesting and helpful content. And be aware of algorithm changes on the social platforms and adjust your tactics accordingly so that you don't lose momentum. And always keep your client profile in mind and speak to that target audience and their frustrations, obstacles, and pain points that you can help with. Crafting a buyer persona will guide you in determining your service offerings, what you should forego and what you should strengthen. Identify the problems you want to solve for your clients and help you build a professional reputation within your chosen market. It will help you attract higher value and long-term clients, which can result in a lot less frustration and wasted time for you. Profiling your ideal client is a necessary step in marketing your creative services and building your brand. To be notified about future training specially designed to help freelance creatives thrive, subscribe to my Freelance Road Trip email list at freelanceroadtrip.com/newsletter. And you will receive notifications about when the next training drops. And lastly, to accelerate your freelance business with targeted and effective business training, because they don't teach you these things in design school, check out my courses for freelance creatives at freelanceroadtrip.com. And thank you for watching. I appreciate you. May you prosper in all things and be in health as your soul prospers.